Hello and welcome to everyone joining us today. My name is Anastasia Puchok and I work on the knowledge management component for Global NEP Update project. Thank you for making your time to attend this roundtable event dedicated to embedding POPs data management information systems at national and regional levels, which is organized by Green Growth Knowledge Partnership, GGKP, under the GEF-funded and UNEP-led Global NEP Update project. And today, as in all our series, we will be talking about the persistent organic pollutants, about the POPs, which are the hazardous chemicals that remain in the environment for long periods and accumulate in living organisms and pose risks to human health and ecosystems. And under the Stockholm Convention, the countries are required to take measures to reduce and eliminate the pollution, production, use, and release of the POPs. And in this connection, they're reliable and accessible and interoperable databases and information management systems are very essential to track the progress, to strengthen the evidence-based policymaking, and also inform the development and update of national implementation plans or NEPs. So in support of this objective, under this project, GEF 10785, UNEP's Knowledge and Risk Unit developed the guidance on key features for establishment a data management hub at the Stockholm Convention regional centers, which outlines the fundamental elements and of effective POPs data management infrastructure. The guidance also promotes the creation of the regional hubs capable of storing, analyzing the related POPs data and to ensure transparency, comparability, collaboration. The guidance will be presented during the roundtable together with the strategy for national adoption on medium and long-term strengthening of the data management systems on POPs, which is also developed by UNEP's Knowledge and Risk Unit for the same project. So we'll hear about these two documents during this roundtable very soon. And also a few regional centers have already made solid steps in developing such systems, which we will be talking about today. So during this roundtable event, we'll hear from BCRC Caribbean. The center will demonstrate the development of the POPs RIS platform, a regional information system for POPs. And also we'll hear from RASA Talks, center in the Czech Republic. They will showcase the global monitoring plan GMP data warehouse for POPs monitoring as a global repository. In addition to that, they'll showcase its pollutant release and transfer register and demonstrate both databases through the Genesis system, showcasing the functionalities and also potential applications for national and regional use in the POPs data management. So today we hope to bring all these experiences to discuss how data management systems can be further embedded at the national, regional levels, something that is not yet that advanced at the moment, but a lot of colleagues around the world are making great efforts, and it would be really nice to hear their experience and to share a bit of the expertise. We want this to be a very interactive event and a dialogue with all the attendees to discuss the solutions, also raise questions, exchange your insights. So please feel free to use the chat, use the Q&A, or keep your hands raised if you would like to raise a question in the end of the session. So a few housekeeping rules. This is an online session and it's with the length of maximum 1.5 hours. It's being recorded. We have interpretation into Spanish, French, and Russian today, so please select your language in the Zoom toolbar. We still welcome your active engagement. I hope you ask some questions and make use of the chat again or the Q&A mode. Finally, please take a moment. I see people are introducing themselves in the chat already, and we are very happy to see all of you. So please keep introducing yourself if you've just joined, and we would really love to know who is with us today. Finally, let me introduce our colleagues who will share their knowledge and expertise with us. This is Ms. Mihaela Claudia Pan, Head of Knowledge and Risk Unit in UNEP, Ms. Carla Valiklan, a Program Management Officer at the BRS Secretariat and also a focal point for NEPs, Ms. Katarina Sepkova, Director of the RASET Talks, the Regional Center in the Czech Republic, and Dana Lewis, Project Execution Officer from the BCRC Caribbean. And with this, it's a great pleasure to give the floor to Ms. Carla Valiklan to open this session. Over to you, Carla, and thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues and panelists. As Anastasia just mentioned, I work for the Secretariat of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions, and I'm catching up on the NIPS work that was originally led by my colleague Suman Sharma, who is now probably on the beach or in the mountains in Nepal after retirement. So it's a pleasure to welcome you here today, and as we gather to reflect on this topic, which is central for the successful implementation of the Stockholm Convention. As we may think, data management is not a nice to have anymore. It's not a technical luxury that a type of infrastructure which only our IT colleagues manage and that we can have our hands off, that we cannot be familiar with. It's an important and key type of activity that all of us in our jobs are supposed to understand and be relating to and supporting and making improvements to in a sense, to complement other works that are not necessarily data oriented. And we all, as citizens, as professionals, understand that increasingly we are living in an era where information is key to justify our actions as civil servants or as scientists, to help us prioritize our actions among the many demands that we have, and the same applies to this convention. And additionally, also, because we have limited resources, data can really help us identify where these priorities and where our resources should be used. So specifically for the Stockholm Convention, I would say that the successful implementation of it is strongly related to data and information gathered by parties and stakeholders in your respective countries. And we have several key obligations under this convention which rely heavily on data. Therefore, data management is very, very important. And as Anastasia mentioned, for example, national implementation plans, I suppose that most of you are involved in that. One obligation pursuant to Article 7 under the convention, but also national reporting, which is another very oriented data and information kind of obligation pursuant to Article 15, are two big examples of obligations that parties to the convention have, which rely on the way you collect data, how you organize that data, and how you eventually prepare your NIPS or submit your reports. Additionally, globally for the convention, we also have, for example, the effectiveness evaluation process, which looks after understanding where we are going into the right direction in regarding the objectives of this convention. And more recently, a compliance committee was also established, and they will also look into data and information. So I think we have enough motivation from the convention internally, but also from the outside world on improving the way we deal with data and how we manage that. And having robust data management processes will help you understand your risks, will understand if your initiatives are in the right track or not. No? And I think one of the points that our colleagues will mention here and will also exemplify is the importance of the systems and software and related applications that may be related to the data management that are available already for the use of parties or are being developed. And these systems may range from web-based applications, data warehouse, analytical tools, mobile applications, and others that will enable you to transform raw data that you get into information and ideally then into policy and collaboration in your regions, or as I said, prioritization of where you're supposed to put your resources, and also timely decision-making. And so investing in these systems, in my opinion, is not just about investing in technology, but it's investing on understanding how technology can help you implement the convention. And additionally, this kind of initiative can also bring other benefits. transparency among the let's say the organizations that are involved in the implementation of the convention, but also at the global level, transparency, but also efficiency. And it can also keep the ball running, because if data is managed in a nice way and in a professional way, let's put it this way, information and knowledge from one officer in your countries to the other is passed in a more natural form. While if no data management is done in your country, imagine that one of the officers responsible for one of these obligations, NIPs or reporting, if the person was trained here today, but then tomorrow the person leaves and the data is not organized in a certain way, the success of that person, of that professional, may have difficulties. So also the continuous learning and then the capacity in the country is guaranteed, or it's more facilitated if you have good tools to manage your data. But the challenge is that data management is not a one-time task. It's something that requires ongoing commitment, and it requires governance, it requires training or capacity building. And I think that value varies a lot among the different countries which are parties to the convention. I would like just to say that I totally support the initiative of the GGKP colleagues and also our colleagues here from UNEP Chemicals and Health Branch, but also from the regional centers, because this can really advance the work of the convention and help you all do your jobs in a better way. So to bring the good impacts that we want by this multilateral environmental agreement. So I will stop speaking, because I think we have more to learn from our panelists, and I wish you a good webinar, and that you can also maybe share with us what you have learned and what you have in your own countries, because maybe you have also things that we don't know, and it would be great to learn from you if these tools and the way you are managing data can be used by others, and we can learn from your experiences as well. So I wish you a nice webinar, and thank you for taking the time to being here today with us. And thanks also to the organizers, colleagues from UNEP Chemicals and Health Branch and the GGKP initiative.
Thank you very much, Carla, for setting up the scene and also giving a flavor to this discussion, reminding us about the importance of the POPs data management and the organizing the POPs information systems, which is frequently somehow forgotten in between between a lot of variety of tasks that countries and the parties have to deal with in their routine. So we're very happy to hear from our next speaker, head of knowledge and risk unit at the UNEP, Mihaela Pon, who will present a few knowledge products developed within this project. Over to you, Mihaela.
Thank you, Anastasia, and good day, colleagues. Thank you for being here on behalf of UNEP. I want to convey the message, and thank you, Carla, for warming up the discussion. So, Anastasia, I will now try to share my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen. And maybe if you could go to presentation mode.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So, yes, I'm working with the Knowledge and Risk Unit of UNEP, Chemicals and Health Branch. And I mean, our role in the GEF Finance project is to provide to come up with knowledge and information and guidance and tools. Oh, sorry, what did I do? As to be disseminated by our colleagues in the GGKP. So with relevance for today's webinar, we have released some time ago in 2023, already in 2024, two short guidance documents, one related to the regional data management hubs, and the other one linked to national related activities and actions us to strengthen or to develop and strengthen the data management system when it comes to POPs. So both these reports are available on the UNEP platform of the GGKP, so you can always go back to them and have a look. I believe soon will need to be updated as well, because things are advancing quite fast, so they may need that. So I will just briefly introduce this, and I will not spend too much time on it. Also, I want to put for kind of a disclaimer. I mean, this is not to be taken, how should I say, ad literam. So depending on different country contexts, you may want to browse through it and pick those aspects that are relevant for your case, because it is impossible to come up with guidance that could cover every potential situation at the country level or even at the regional level, right? So the guidance goes through different potential steps that you may want to consider when establishing or strengthening your data management system. And then I will briefly walk you through this. So of course, ideally is that you assess what kind of data management systems you have in general in your country, or if you already have something related to POPs data. And I think most of the time you are already doing this when you developed or you update your NEP. But that is seen as a kind of first step. Now, based on what is already there or it is not, then you can the other steps will unfold. Some examples, may take into consideration having a committee or an expert group, or how do you want to call it, established at the country level to oversee the POPs data management aspect at the national level. But at the same time, for example, there are countries that they already have the national coordination committees for the NEP development. And some may use something that is existing. I'm not encouraging creating new committees or expert groups or things like that. So you should not get me wrong in this presentation, but as I mentioned in the beginning, it very much depends on your country context. So you may want to have kind of a group of people that are involved, for example, in data collection, but also have expertise in managing the data once collected and so on and so forth, and have regular catch-ups to decide how you best manage it. And then, of course, collecting the data is very important, and to have data to manage. Therefore, we know that in the context of the Stockholm Convention, there is a range of different stakeholders that hold data sets, like from industry, from other ministries, agencies, and so on and so forth. Therefore, it should be kind of a system in place to be able to have a regular reporting system into your data management system, and to keep this information up to date. So that's why here step 3 is on stakeholder participation program or type of involvement. In some cases, for example, there are law requirements, right, or are mandated by government decision or any other type of legislative frameworks that impose reporting obligations and impose, like, creating data management systems to manage that data that is reported by different stakeholders. So things may differ across countries. And then it is important to have government support. And I think in the context of the Stockholm Convention, most things come, for example, in the NEP process as well, because, for example, your action plans may envisage, if you don't have a POPs data management system or a data management system in general, and you want to start from here with POPs data and then expand to other data sets, this may need to be reflected in your NEP, and most of the time we have seen that the NEP is adopted by government decision or by laws, and therefore it becomes mandatory to some extent, and you will have with it budget associated, right? Because if it is something to be implemented, it has a budget implication, and it is therefore considered into the national budget and financing system for it. And it's not only developing the system, but it's also maintaining the system, as was mentioned earlier by Carla. And then, yeah, other potential option is to have, as I said, have this regulated, either through a separate piece or through the different reporting requirements that you impose when you set your legislation to implement the Stockholm Convention, for example. And of course, any kind of such regulatory frameworks will need to have an enforcement and monitoring system as well, so to keep track to what extent you are able to, develop such system, maintain the system, and so on and so forth. And not least the awareness raising around it. So if there are obligations arising from the reporting exercises, this needs to be brought forward to all the relevant stakeholders, and they need to be trained as well, as mentioned by Carla, to be able to provide the needed data. And then people that manage the data collected should also get trained, and there should be means also to maintain the system. And then the guidance also looks into the strengthening the data management systems. So I will not go through all this. You see there are some focus areas mentioned. Carla was mentioning about data governance, data quality, data security, technology that sits behind the whole system, and supporting actions around it, right? So training, including this automotive repetitive data task, for example, use of data analytics, share data securely with partners, and so on and so forth. So this is in the guidance related to the national context. And now I will just briefly mention about the regional data hubs. So we have seen that throughout the NEP work, there were many countries flagging that they lack data management systems, and they want to have, for example, their data stored somewhere and things like that. And we will hear right after me really nice and very complex examples from the colleagues from Reset Talks or from the BCRC Trinidad, and I think you will find it really interesting. But just to put forward some key elements that other regional centers, for example, that do not have this data hub, and they need to know about what are those key elements that are relevant. You see here we described some. So the database behind, right? Data integration related aspects. So merging information from multiple sources, collaboration that is very important and is key to ensure the link between different user businesses, regulators, and so on, but also between I mean, at the regional level among countries and things like that. Data quality, I think regular updates and checking on errors and things like that it's also very valid and should be kept in mind. Security and compliance, of course, it is important for your data to be protected and to decide which is publicly available, which is stored there because you have no other means. Scalability through different cloud-based type of instruments, and then user-friendly interface, and not least multilingual and training around this accessibility in use, right? So I think that is it from my end. So I believe that in when you do not have any means, I think you should consider what the regional centers are putting forward to support with your storing the data and presenting your data. And also, maybe in this context, I would like to mention that through a different initiative, there is this Stockholm Convention Integrated Electronic Toolkit, the one that we put forward to support the NEP process, that could also, become a type of tool that could support storing your NEP POPs, POPs inventory data and other NEP-related data as well. But this doesn't mean that if you want to share it in the regional context as well. So the two things are not excluding each other, and I believe it can work mutually as well. So I think that is it from my end. I will stop here. So feel free to reach out, or if there is any questions, feel free to address.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michaela, for this comprehensive overview of the structure and the steps that in overall shape, the bigger picture of the data management, both for national and for regional cases. But since we'll have a bit more bigger focus on the regional systems in the next presentations, just one question for the countries. So since there is a scarcity of the financial resources, also scarcity of the human resources on the national level, so maybe it could be also hard for countries to implement all of the steps at the same time. So what would be your probably practical but also very realistic recommendation, maybe some key 3 steps that countries could start with, or maybe look at when they collect their data, POPs data, and they start thinking about how to manage this data forward?
Okay, so good question. I cannot really, like the magic solution. I think it very much depends on the country context. When it comes to this. So if you ask me, like, what do you need to focus on before you start your, let's say, data collection, it means that, for me, in the NEP context or POPs inventory context, I think you need to be very clear what data you need to collect in first, right? So what is your focus? Then what is your collection methods? And for example, collection methods and how you plan to collect that data basically impacts later on how you, where do you plan to store it, right? Because at some point, if you already have like, I don't know, some they may use Excel file, I don't know, some may have an online system already. I think you need to correlate the data collection method as later on to be able to transfer this data or aggregate this data and having it in those formats that you have, for example, in your online system, I think Excel may allow you to adjust easily, but maybe predefined online system will not have that flexibility. So you need to check that beforehand, right? I think that is quite important. You also need to identify your relevant stakeholders, right, that you need to approach. And also it needs, you need to, how should I say, build their literacy on the way that you want this data to be submitted, collected, and things like that, as to match your whatever formats, or later on to be easily aggregated in some other online data system that you may have. So I think you need to do a bit of work before you start the whole process, as to make sure you are collecting it in the right formats, or in such a way that will allow you to aggregate easily and put it in your data system. And not least, I believe it is important to double check internally with other teams dealing with other relevant conventions. So I'm thinking here maybe climate change convention, right? Because GHS emission, for example, and Minamata Convention on mercury emission, there might be, you know, similar stakeholder that they already approach at some other point in time in that particular year to gather the same, for example, relevant activity data. So you don't want to go twice to the same stakeholders requesting bits and pieces, you know, because you only deal with POPs and you know, so you need also to do a bit of homework before you start the whole process, and try to see what is already there and take it from there, and also try to harmonize these formats and identify other elements that basically will influence in the end the way you may need to store your data, or aggregate your data, or present your data, and things like that. So I hope it it responds to some sort to your question, but I'm happy to hear from others if they have other ideas. They may have other experience with this.
Thanks, Mihaela. We actually have a few questions on the chat, and I think a few to UNEP related to your presentation. So if you wouldn't mind, I'll read this few. So is UNEP analyzing the trends of POPs by regions, and is there data related to the concentration, relating concentration to health and environment impacts? That's the first question. If this is something you could address.
Yeah, so I think Katka may have some examples from the POPs monitoring related work, so I don't want to touch upon that. I will leave it to her. I think it was, I mean, joint work between UNEP that was supporting the POPs monitoring related plan, global monitoring plan, and Resetalk play a key role in that, and they are having the data warehouse. So if you don't mind, I will leave this to Katka if she wants to take it over.
Maybe one last question related to your presentation is, you've clearly outlined the vision for a centralized national data repository, but from the enforcement and regulatory perspective, the challenge is often translating the data into actionable intelligence. So if you could elaborate on the specific data fields and reporting mechanisms that are designed to directly identify the compliance gaps, pinpoint non-compliant facilities, and support.
It's really heavy.
It's a heavy one.
Heavy question. I don't think I have the magic answer to this. I think it depends on many variables, I believe. And I believe, you know, the way you use the data, it is triggered by the initial request. So from where this request is coming, right? So if it is in the Stockholm Convention context, you know, it's because through your subsequent legislation, like to implement the Stockholm Convention, you also included mandatory reporting requirements And why did you include the mandatory reporting requirements? Because you want to use that information later on in further strengthen your policy, because you could see the trends across years and you don't see any decrease, I don't know, in emissions, in the presence of chemicals in different products. Therefore, you as a decision maker, policy maker, you may want to take further action and really strengthen your regulation, as you believe that will be the best way to achieve the objectives of the convention, right? But there might be other avenues why you have requested such reporting. I don't know, because you need to document your investments, right? So there are those, for example, so-called environmental fund that are financing intervention in different areas, and you want to understand what is the baseline situation for that, and for that you need to collect some data and take your decision. I don't know, I'm giving few examples. I cannot say exactly like what is the case, but I think it's in each country context, there could be many ways, and there is a huge potential in using the data collected, right? For different related matters that in the end contributes to the protection of human health and environment, right? Because it's our ultimate goal, how should I say?
Thanks, Mihaela. Truly a hard one, but we have a few left.
Okay.
And before we let you go, just let us address this few questions. So a few colleagues resonated to the data collection aspect. So rather than a question, it's we have on the chat that the problem in our country is to find the accurate data to manage, and then also the data transparency when it's collected. So sometimes we have we need more the projects to help us start the real inventories for the new POPs. So it's more reflection on the data collection exercise. And also, I guess the question is about the toolkit, which you mentioned earlier as one of the solutions to store the data for NIPS and POPs. In Cameroon, we collected the data from stakeholders. We have the fields in the toolkit that we cannot fill in due to the lack of the data or lack of information in the country level. So what should we do in this case? I believe you addressed this question a few times in the toolkit session, so maybe a quick
Yeah, so
reference.
maybe as a quick reaction, I think little information is better than no information at all. I mean, about the accuracy, yes, this is I mean, recurrent issue, and I believe our role and your role in the country context is to ensure to the best extent possible. How should I say that it's accurate? Of course, sometimes you very much depend on what is declared by different stakeholders. You don't have any means how to verify that, so I'm taking an example. Someone will say, yes, we have this product and we believe the concentration, we have some POPs in it, I don't know, the concentration might be this one, or we have products with no POPs in it. So how do you check that? I mean, you need, I mean, it is very intense, and I don't think it is possible to really double check, all the statements of different stakeholders that are reporting into your system. You need to rely on the declaration of the respective sector. Of course, ideally will be to have means to check that, but I don't think we are yet there, and of course the multitude of data that we need to generate only in the Stockholm Convention context is putting even a heavier burden on all of you in the country context. So I think you may need to decide, you may need to use your expert judgment where you believe that might be something that is off, that you believe is I mean, it was reported by one stakeholder, but you believe it's not really the most accurate data, you can always describe that, you know, in your NEP or in a inventory report, and then next time with other means, maybe you can check on that and come to the bottom of it, right? But there is, I mean, it is really resource intense, both financial and human resources. So I think it's a matter of national decision and context to what extent you are able to check the data that you received, right? To really say it's fully accurate and we are able to check. And on the other hand, you need to have the reporting stakeholders accountable for the data that they provide to you, right? As well. And sometimes there are means that you need to request them additional, how should I say, evidence. Like I'm taking not a POP example, but for example, in case of paints, they need to demonstrate that their paints is lead free, for example, if you have a law in place regulating the lead in your paint. So they need to provide a third-party type of certification to demonstrate that. So that is kind of ensuring it's accurate and it's in compliance with your legislation, for example. So there are other means that you can put in place to ask the stakeholders to provide that third-party type of certification for some of the, I don't know, products, materials, whatever. So yeah, I will stop here.
Thank you so much, Michaela. I keep seeing the questions on the chat, but I guess we will move forward with the next part of this session because we have really another amazing part from the regional centers on all the developments that are ongoing on that end. And many thanks to Michaela for introducing this project guidance. And I hope our colleagues will check out the guidance and get back with the questions by email if they have any. And please feel free to reach out to us anytime. And with that, I'm ready to give the floor to Ms. Katerina Sepkova from Resetox, the director of Resetox, our regional center in the Czech Republic. And many thanks to Katerina for joining. It's actually a public holiday over there in Czech Republic, but thank you so much. We truly appreciate this opportunity. And over to you.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. Thank you very much for inviting us to join. So let me, so good day to everyone. I know I've seen a couple of you for whom it's morning, a couple of you for whom it's already afternoon. So let me provide you an information about information systems for persistent organic pollutants on the basis of experience of the Czech Republic. Currently, I am working as director of regional center in the Stockholm Convention in Resetox Masaryk University. It is a collaborative institute together with the Czech Ministry of Environment. But in my previous post, I worked as the Ministry of Environment official, and I was responsible, among others, for preparing NEP, for really looking at what data we have regarding persistent organic pollutants. And I think I can sum it up that for us, it's over than 20 years of experience. And we've made a couple of mistakes, but I think that we have managed to prepare some good things. And I would like to share with you today, and I hope you can see the slides, and the slides are moving, right? Can someone confirm that to me?
Yes, Katka,
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will have brief presentation first. And then I would like to show you the GMP data warehouse if you don't have an experience with it, but also a pollution and release transfer register that we have in the country. Because, and then of course there are also other systems, but I don't have any authorization to show them to you, and I don't even have an access to it. So I would myself, even though the systems exist, I would have to ask authorization or data from a relevant management officer. So, and I would also like to say that, you know, over those 20 years, there was really a parallel development of legislation at various levels, be it global level, but be it also among scientific community. And that resulted in a very interesting situation where we are now. 20 years ago, it was quite normal to have a PDF file, or at best to have Excel sheet, where you would have your data collected in one place. But rather, you would have a big, thick books printed, where you would have the data non-digitized. Well, nowadays it seems very distant reality and very strange. Now almost everything is digitized. You have thousands of databases, and then you have this blindness by opportunity, because you don't know to which database to look and how transparent and accurate are those data. So at the outset, after the Stockholm Convention entered into force, in the Czech Republic, the research community really wanted to contribute. So at that moment, since we followed the persistent organic pollutants at RECETOC, so at my center, for over 2 decades at that time already, we said, well, we would like really to make sure that in the country we have accurate data about fate and transport of persistent organic pollutants throughout the environment. And we started working on a database. And when the Global Monitoring Plan came into force, and you see here on the screen the main objective, which is to identify changes in the concentrations over time. And so basically to be able to come up with data sets like this one, which you see on the screen. Well, we were really working very hard and came up with something which currently some of you who work with the monitoring of persistent organic pollutants in the environment may have come across, or some of you who may be members of the regional organization group, or collaborate with colleagues in the regions or in the countries, have heard something about the GMP data warehouse. It is actually an organization system, a data repository and visualization that is helping regions who don't have enough capacity to prepare their regional reports, and also for countries, if they wish to, not develop the same or similar system nationally, then there exists also a possibility how to store their national data in it and use all the features. So the data warehouse consists of 2 parts. One is public part, which is data visualization, and the other one is the background, which is data management console, which is for the technicians, expert data managers who verify that everything is harmonized, that everything works well. So I would like to speak about the importance of data being really harmonized, coded, having a very specific structure which is validated, so that we can say, yes, the information is comparable. It is non-duplicative. And we have approval of data providers to use this information and work with it. It is extremely important. This is a very simple flow of information. What happens with the GMP data warehouse? So somewhere you have your data. These data come through the data management console and are imported. And then the system is pre-programmed to store relevant information, not only the level of concentration, but also information and metadata about the sampling site, about the method, how the information was generated, and stores then this information, which is then in a harmonized protocol going into the data warehouse visualization. Just to recall, for the Stockholm Convention, there are core matrices, which is air, surface water, and then human exposure data, which is either human breast milk or human blood. And the data that are coming into the data warehouse are coming either as primary data or annually aggregated. And of course, the goal of any repository information visualization system is to make sure that the information that is displayed can be displayed together, that we are not displaying together primary data and aggregated data, because it would be total nonsense. So there needs to be a very important knowledge behind to decide which data belong to which part, which are primary, which are aggregated, and what to make as a next step. And in order to enable all this, there are really very strict data templates that needs to be followed. So there is an example information about sampling site, about latitude, longitude, where it's coming from, what are the other metadata related to the sample, also when the sample was collected, by which method, and so on. And then at the very end of it, you have the numeric value of your concentration. So these formats exist for every environmental compartment. And then there are also some specific codes. So you have units, you have which methods can be used for chemicals that we have in the convention. We have not only the types, but there are different congeners or degradation products, which are also monitored. So there is the list which value can really be proportionate. And if that is not the case, then upon import, the system already tells you, well, there is a mistake in your data. Maybe you can come back and verify this. So the GMP data warehouse, as I said, management console and data visualization. And I will just click through quickly because I will then show you in real time. So that would be the opening page where you see the full global data, which is already summarized throughout the regional report or global report under the global monitoring plan under the Stockholm Convention, which is being written every 6 years. And I would like to just recall that in 2027, the next Conference of the Parties will be looking at the 4th regional report. So now we are basically preparing, and we will be opening by end of this year, again, data collection session. So data visualization, we have 5 modules that you select on the left side of your screen, which then you can look at different points. So this shows you the spatial distribution, basically where you have sampling sites around the globe. You can zoom in, select the country, see where activities are going, and those are official activities. Yeah. Then data availability module, you see countries on the left, years of sampling on the x-axis, and the dots, colorful dots, give you where we have the sample taken, and the color, the greener, means less information, less chemicals covered. Of course, we know that over the years, Stockholm Convention increased number of chemicals. So nowadays, we would like to see more red, basically, in our tables. There is summary statistics module, which tells us what is the variability of the annually aggregated information. And then we have an output that all of us is looking for. So what are the trends? What are the levels and how they change over time? So there you can either see a map, and there you can select the sites and see for a particular chemical, or you can just explore really the trend and the characteristics of a trend. And this is really a tool that is helping decision makers, but also stakeholders in seeing what activities are taking place in their country in relating to Stockholm Convention POPs monitoring. The visualizations are available all the time once they are authorized. So once the regional reports are written, then all data are released, and so they are freely available. And I would like just to remind everyone, it is not primary data, but it is annually aggregated concentration. So even if your sampling protocol, for example, makes it 12 samples per year, in the GMP data warehouse, it is represented as one sampling point. But throughout this summary statistics, you can see the variability in a given year for all 12 samples. So this GMP data warehouse system was something that was really developed for the purposes of the global monitoring plan, but on the basis of experience of our own national system that we were developing since 2001. And in 2008, we had the first beta version that allows us really to store research data that were done by the Czech Republic research community working on POPs in various fields, and basically allow then the team who was responsible for national implementation plan updates to work with this information. And nowadays, of course, now we are not in 2009 nor 2012 when this first data warehouse was established, but we are now much further, because many of you might have heard about Open Science Cloud. Many of you are probably using ChatGPT. There are also multiple repositories. There are, of course, databases or dashboards that different stakeholders are working with. But there really has to be behind a quite strong expert knowledge, also IT teams. And I think personally, there really needs to be a strong support from a research infrastructure, I believe. And this is what at RECETOX we can benefit from. We have a team of about 15 people that are either data managers or data analysts, but also IT specialists who are able to work with different sources and prepare really such a complex data repositories, and also automated, work on automatic procedures that you would basically import your information in a strictly coded in strictly structured format. And this information is then stored safely and also it can be visualized. And this really, the primary objective was really to make sure that we collect all possible information about environment contamination in our country, and to really make it available to the decision makers. At about the same time, globally, in Geneva, in the not at UNEP, but in the Economic Commission of Europe, they were working on, and I do apologize for some Czech words in it, but that's actually the name of a register, which is called Integrated Pollution Register. And that's another system which is not looking at the facts, what you see in the environment, but what polluters actually release. So there are any facilities or industrial installations, but it can be also hospitals, can be schools, anyone who is releasing any specific discharges into the environment. And there was a movement under the Aarhus Convention that adopted a GEF protocol on pollutant release and transfer registers. And if I'm not mistaken, my country was the first that wanted to pilot the guidance on how to create one of these databases or data systems. And since 2002, such system was really collected and existed in Excel formats. The database became online since 2004. And at the similar time, at the European Union level, this pollutant release transfer registers was also being transposed into the European legislation. So since 2016, we have European legislation in place. Every European country has to have such a system. And what this system is doing, well, it brings information to any stakeholder about facilities that are producing fallout pollutants. If I'm not mistaken, at the start there were 86. I think now there are 92. And for specific activities, I think there are more than 230 activities. They have to report on releases into air, water, soil, and in waste every 15th February on what they have released into those environmental compartments on the levels. And that's about my presentation. But as I promised, I would show you, and if I still have a little bit of time, I would like to show you the GMP data.
We do have the time.
We do? Okay.
Yes.
So thank you very much. So this is, as I promised, the GMP data warehouse. We can just go back to the primary page, which I showed. So we clicked on the visualization, and this is where we got. So we got into spatial distribution. If I would minimize this window, this would show me where it says a number in the screen. It gives me how many sites are in this particular field. So I would like to choose some, I would choose matrix. So we would choose, for example, air. And now it changes. So let's also choose a specific chemical. So let's do, let's pick up, for example, DDT. Or no, let's do hexabromocyclododecane, this one. So you see the sites in air that exist globally, for which we have data until 2022. We can have a look what are the data availability over time. So as you can see, this chemical was started to be measured after it has been included into the convention. So it was in 2000 and 2011. So from 2014, we have data in various parts of the world. And we can have a look in, so we have data availability, we have summary statistics. So let's see if we have any time series. So do we see any trends? Yes, it tells me that we need to look at the specific parameter. So we would like to see gamma, no, we see alpha, HBCD, apply. Right, so what we see colorful dots. And those dots are described down here. So for the moment, what we can say from this particular view, that the size tells us what is the median of the concentration. If we have the blue, it says that we don't have a statistically significant trend. So we don't have basically enough data. If there is gray, the information about trend is not available either, because this data is just a single point, and from a single point you cannot establish any trend, or the measurements, for example, might have been discontinued and so on. So if we can of course choose another chemical. We can come back here. We can add next. No, not add next, sorry. Cancel chemical. So I would like to choose another chemical, which is PCB. I would like to PCB, and we can put 153. So now for air data for PCB, you can see that there are various types of trends. We can see somewhere on a particular site, we can see an increase. If we click somewhere where we see decrease, for example, here in France, we see that the levels, and they're quite low because this is 3 picogram, and over the years it has decreased, but somewhere here we may have information about trends that from 10 it has decreased to about 4, so over 20 years, for example. So just to have an information about data. And of course, there are also possibilities for data exports. So you can have all data sites, analytical methods. So if I click here, we see which was monitoring network, from which year to which year we have data, and also about, what technique were used to produce data. And all this information can be exported if you just open save dialog, and you can save it as Excel, or you can save it if it is a chart, if it is a map, you can save it as not CSV, as JPEG, or you can do a screenshot, or you can also save it as a format file which is compatible with your report. I would like, if I still have a minute, I would like also to show you, and apologies, it is in Czech only, but this is this integration release pollutant release register. So I can have a look at the map, and for example, I know, and I've prepared myself for it, and there is only Czech Republic there, because this is a system which is for the Czech Republic, and so they are data only from the Czech Republic. So I know that from those 86 chemicals that are obligatory to report, if you are over a certain threshold, I know that there are PFASs. So I have selected pair and polyfluorinated hydrocarbons here, which are produced. So I have selected this, and for the year 2024, I see that these installations in the country have released a certain amount. And here underneath the map, I also have a table that is telling me which installation, where I can find it, to which environmental compartment it was released, in what amount. So you see, basically it's from, and you see in kilograms. So there are some installations which really have released quite tiny amount. There are another one like this one, and that was done by calculation. There are some other ones which have released over 3 and 6 kilograms per year into the waters of the Czech Republic. So this is just a glimpse, and those pollution release transfer register exist in many countries, and I will put under the UNECE protocol, the GEF protocol, they exist. I'm not sure that all the links work, but if someone is interested, I will just put this link into the chat so that you can have a look later. And of course, I will be happy to, to answer any questions if they are. And I will now stop sharing my screen. So that's all, I think, from me. Thank you very much. Now I'm not sure whether you were actually seeing the
Thank you, Katka. Yeah, we still can see your screen.
You can still see my screen.
Yeah, we
Okay,
can
so I will
see your screen still. But thank you so much. That was a very comprehensive and a great dive into all the advancements and the developments on the Recitox end. And I've heard a lot, but it's really a privilege to take a look and to learn more about how it came up in a shape that you showed us, that now it has a data trends, which is really a great thing, I guess. And we have one question from the chat. I'm not sure if you would be able to address this question, but let's give it a try. With the access to GMP, which is limited, how can we capitalize on this data from the warehouse?
Right. No, actually, the access is not limited in the sense, because any data that were reported to regional organization groups and that the regional organization groups have used, they can be used by any country. You can, at the Stockholm Convention website, there is a list of regional organization group members. So the easiest is to contact them, to ask them to help. And if that doesn't work, you can always come to GMP Data Warehouse colleagues that will also be very happy to help. So for example, if you have seen that at the GMP Data Warehouse, you have data from Cameroon, for example, or from, I don't know, Côte d'Ivoire, and you would like to work with them, it's very easy to, identify, use this information. This is no problem. This is all publicly accessible. And I wanted also to mention that our own national system, Genesis, can also help if any country has a monitoring data. And for the moment, I think we work with Canada and with the Slovak Republic. We can also allow them to use the system. We are not showing it publicly, but it's for that particular country to use it. So, for example, that's another possibility. So we can always contact us.
Thank you very much, Katka. I think that's an amazing opportunity for the countries who also try to make a lot of efforts to generate some data sets and to bring them to some level of compliance, data compliance, to collaborate with the rest of talks on in this regards, and maybe make advantage and use of the Genesis database, as I understand. So we'll make sure that we'll leave your contact information for the participants of this session so that they can explore opportunities and avenues for collaboration forward. But thanks a lot for this amazing knowledge sharing session, Katka, and we are ready to move with our next speaker from BCRC Caribbean, Ms. Dana Lewis, who is going to present the development of the center, the POPs RIS system. Now word to you, Dana.
Okay, thank you very much, Anastasia, and good day, everyone. It's a pleasure for the BCRC Caribbean to be here to present on our POPs Regional Information System. Just wanting to confirm that you're able to see my screen in full screen.
Yes, it's full screen presentation mode. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I'll move straight into the presentation. So this is the POPs Regional Information System. This is a system that was developed under a previous project that the center would have executed. We call it GEF 5558, but the official name of the project is the Development and Implementation of a Sustainable Management Mechanism for Persistent Organic Pollutants in the Caribbean. This was a project implemented by UNEP-led and funded by the GEF. And under this project, we would have developed the POPs RIS, which is a database for national and regional information on the uses and management of POPs and their related contaminated sites. So the platform really uses GIS, and that is a technology that allows us to map and also analyze and visualize data in a spatial way, and also to understand if there are any trends or relationships between those data points. So the system will be used by various national agencies to improve the way that they make decisions as it relates to the management of POPs to protect human health and the environment. And also the system is designed to provide for an integrated or a parallel geospatial representation of data. So in the way that we don't only have that data that could be represented, for example, in an Excel sheet where we have the type of POPs and the quantity, but we could also identify where it exists spatially. And the system is also to be used as a depository for POPs-related studies and reports. And this could include things like assessment reports that were done, national inventories, any recommendation reports. Also, the platform can post photos as well that relate to the specific area. And also the national implementation or the NIPs can be also updated to the platform. So the architecture of the platform, what does it require and how does it work? So the platform is a web-based system for hosting, managing, and visualizing POPs data across the Caribbean countries, and it is built on the ArcGIS Hub. It features a GIS-enabled interface for mapping and analyzing contaminated sites, the emissions of POPs, and also chemical inventories. And the way that the platform is web-based, it allows us to benefit from two major features. The first being that it is widely accessible remotely. I could be here in Trinidad and Tobago, and someone else in another country can access the site and make edits and work, add information, view the data available on the site. And also that the site allows for synchronization. So I can make changes to the site and someone again in another country can get those real-time updates to the way that the data is represented on the regional information system. Now, the platform is securely managed and it looks at both countrywide and site-specific data, data that is representative of specific facilities as well as areas and again, countrywide. And it also allows for multi-level user permissions, which control access at varying levels for persons that are accessing the site. So it would allow national stakeholders to view. We could increase the permissions that someone else can view and upload. Another person can view, upload, and also manipulate further the data on the website. So it is secure and it allows us to manage the way that the site itself is updated and the data is hosted on the website as well. So in terms of the data that we currently have on the website, so as I mentioned, this was developed under GEF 5558. So it focuses specifically on POPs at this time. Some of the types of POPs data we have on the website would be POPs pesticides, PFOS, PCBs, UPOPs, and also PBDEs. And the countries that are currently hosted on the regional system would be 8 countries that participated in the project. So Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Belize, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. At this time, the platform is not officially launched just yet. We're in a phase where we are looking at expanding the platform to the other countries we serve. As a regional center, we serve 15 Caribbean countries. So we want to expand to include other countries that are interested as well. And in the future, we also want to expand what chemicals are hosted on the platform. So eventually, more than just POPs, we would look at things like mercury, sites that are contaminated with mercury, and also specific waste streams, e-waste and tires, for example. That would be our hope for the expansion of the platform so that it could be a hub not just for POPs, but other chemicals as well in the Caribbean region. So the data requirements for the site, as I mentioned, it uses GIS, and because of that, it will require specific data that can be visualized on the regional information system. So the first, you'd need GPS coordinates or mapped boundaries of the areas that contain POPs or products that contain POPs, where they're stored, where they may be used, any place that has POPs that have been disposed of as well. So it's important that we link that chemical data, so the quantity, the type, but also where it's located. We would also want to identify the name and any information on that facility. So what type of facility is it? That would impact the way in which those POPs will then be managed. So for example, if it's a landfill, if it's stored in a warehouse, as an incinerator. So this would be important for us to also list on the website. And this is also a capability of the regional information system to have, apart from that visual data, what we call the metadata as well, or that background information to support what you're able to see visually. Another important data set that we would often want to link with the regional information system is any nearby sensitive areas. And a feature of the RIS is that it allows us to identify contaminated sites and ascribe a risk rating or risk score to specific sites, which I'll show you a bit later as I go through a live demo of the website, but allowing us to visualize what nearby sensitive areas there are, we could see what should be prioritized for immediate management and so on. So if it's a specific water body that is near to a landfill, near to a factory or so that might have the POPs, it would be important for us to know that. Residential areas, protected ecosystems, and also agricultural lands. So the data, as I mentioned, should be in a GIS-ready format. This would be shapefiles and attribute tables that could be read by that ArcGIS platform and used in the RIS. So the key stakeholders that we would recommend, and this is also something that we're looking at as we expand the platform, would be persons to also be trained to use the RIS. So as it requires some knowledge of GIS, we would recommend that more technical persons would be the users, and it would require some level of collaboration between the focal agencies to the Stockholm Convention, as well as professionals in the ministries of planning or any ministries that would have that geospatial data, any environmental ministries, health, agriculture, and so on, to provide that data as well, the chemical side, but also the spatial side that can be combined and represented on the RIS. And we'll also, as I mentioned, looking at, as we expand, to do a training as well for these persons to understand how to work and operate with the system. So this is just a video that shows the current state of the POPs Regional Information System. As you can see, this is our homepage, and it also links to the Stop the POPs campaign, which is a campaign also developed by the BCRC under the GEF 5558 project. If you haven't seen it already, I encourage you to take a look, stopthepops.com, and you could be informed, and there are brochures and other, informational documents on the different types of POPs that exist, UPOPs, PFOS, PBDEs, and so on. And this is a map we have in country that shows the 8 countries, as I mentioned, that are participating or that participated in the project. So this is just the home page. The second page that it will now move to is the administrative page for the BCRC. And here you can see we have the number of sites based on the data that we have already uploaded. So we have 2 contaminated sites that you'll see, and we also have dashboards that help to visualize this data in a more user-friendly way along with a map, so you could actually see rather than just the numbers. There's also the ability for the validation of data. So once persons upload the data to the site, it has to be validated. So that is our 2-step authentication of what data is added to the website to make sure that it is accurate and will be published for others to view. So this is just a quick look at one of the dashboards specifically. As I mentioned, we have the ability to look at things at a countrywide level and also for specific sites and facilities. So this looks at a more regional view. So overall, just based on the data that we have uploaded to the platform at this time, we have depicted 66 sites where we've identified PFOS, 16 for POPs, PCBs 26. And again, GIS is all about the data that you have. The more data that you have, the more the platform will be built out and the more we're able to visualize that data. So we could also navigate by type of POPs to see where they exist within the region and how much there are. And we could also now just switch to a more national view. So the example here is Barbados. For Barbados, we see that transformers are the largest place where we have PCBs found, and this is just based on the depiction. And I mentioned we also have the ability, this is just the map again of Barbados, to look at nationally where things exist and zoom in to specific sites. So it's just going to zoom into one of the sites here. We use unique identifiers to link the location with the information relating to it. So here, as I mentioned, you're able to link photos as well to the site. So in addition to adding that chemicals data, we can make it more visual so we can actually see the state of the area. And when we zoom into that specific site, I mentioned we're able to also identify based on the risk score for that contaminated site. We're able to see what POPs may exist at that site. Also see, so where the source of the POPs are, what pathways may exist, and any receptors. And based on that information, the type of POPs, the quantity, it will be given a risk score. And that is something we can again use for better informed decision making. So that was an overview of the POPs RIS system as we have it currently. And I'll just speak a bit about the way that it can be interlinked with the NIPs under the Stockholm Convention. So as you're aware, the NIPs serve as the primary national framework for identifying sources of POPs and outlining the strategies for their reduction or elimination and reporting on the progress of same. So by linking the regional information system with this process of developing NIPs, countries have the ability to centralize and standardize their POPs-related data. So the system would ask for the data in a specific way, and we could link that to what is required for the NIPs. So we have that data all collated in a standard format, collected across the different countries, but in a standardized format, so reporting becomes easier. There's also the possibility to manage the inventories, the stockpiles, and the contaminated sites and their emissions as well. As we already, through the platform, the aim is to have that clear data allocated and identified for each of these different sources, and to also streamline milestone tracking and reporting to the Convention Secretariat. The POPs RIS can also support with the periodic updating of the NIPs. So by providing a current, accessible evidence base for policies and technical decision making, the POPs RIS can also, as I mentioned, facilitate the periodic update of the NIPs and strengthen the national capacity for countries as they are reporting. Additionally, the platform supports regional collaboration through the promotion again of that harmonization across the Caribbean countries and enhancing the region's capacity to meet the obligations of the Stockholm Convention. So more than anything, beyond the RIS being just a storage site or a hub, it is a system that functions as a dynamic tool for monitoring and the sustainable management of. So thank you all so much again for the opportunity to present on this. I am available, the BCRC Caribbean is available to answer any questions that you have. And again, thank you for your attention. So I'll hand over to Anastasia at this time.
Thank you very much, Dana. And indeed, I think we had one more session earlier at the BRS COP where you slightly presented, and that's a great opportunity to see, a more detailed introduction to the IRS, and it's really truly inspiring and promising and advanced examples from the regional centers that we saw today, and it's really amazing because a few years ago we couldn't even think of having these examples. Today we're talking about all these systems with the GIS and the few things that I just want to highlight that both of you mentioned, the Katka and Dana, is the standards to the data. I think that the hardest part was standardizing the whole data, bringing it to the same, let's say, format. And as Katka mentioned, the data templates are quite complicated, but very important. And also Dana resonated to that. And the data validation mechanisms that probably, I guess, contributed a lot to the success of these systems. And truly amazing examples. A few questions, I guess, were addressed by Katka on the chat already, but still there is one question, and I assume that was a question to Katka in regards to okay, so that's that's a question to Recitox. Recitox has done a very good job on the POPs. Have you a few examples of instances where this data has been used to address pollution issues in your country, in the Czech Republic? Would you like to address this question, Katka?
Yes, certainly. You know, the information that we got, for example, was high levels of PCB chemicals in in the vicinity of a factory that was formerly producing PCBs, and the remediation activities were really put in place. There was another example in a theater in beautiful town of Český Krumlov, has used pentachlorophenol to protect the centuries-old wooden beams. Unfortunately, the concentration was not minimum, and there were significant releases, and that was really a big threat to any visitors and participants. So once this was found out, there was a certain remediation, again, or correction or removal of the unwanted or unexpected wood protection agent that needed to be in close collaboration with the archaeological and historical heritage authority. That is really, because that's a theater from 17th century, so it's a part of a national heritage, and so it couldn't be just scraped off of the wood and beams, but had to be really taken down carefully and has been closely monitored. So the levels then over the action, we have monitored also the course of the action, and we know that the levels are now safe. So again, the theater can be used for continuous, not only visits, but and then we, I think I know about 2 or 3 cases where we thought we would be monitoring in a remote area, but we found a contaminated site, which then had to be, of course, remediated. So yes, the monitoring can help. Now with water monitoring, which is trickier if you do river monitoring, because of course it's not a steady water, but there at least you know that something has happened upstream, and then you can take action. So yes, monitoring activities are also complex, are costly, but can really trigger an immediate action.
Thank you very much, Katka, for addressing this question and sharing this interesting example in the case about the theater. Indeed, I think probably the final on the final note of this session, we could conclude that data is a first step, but still it's an asset. It's an asset that incredibly, it's a game changer. It changes the way we act. It really affects how fast we can act, how precise we can act at the site. And the Katka's example is, I think, amazingly illustrates how data is important and how much is to be done ahead. But I hope it was a very helpful session for our participants to learn from the regional centers that already have this expertise and continuously work directly with the countries on the ground and generating, help them bring this data to their systems and their information hubs and inform the decision making. If any of the speakers would like to say anything as a final word or maybe encouragement. I've seen a few comments of probably a bit of frustration about the data collection that I see colleagues are trying to collect the data. We're talking about how to manage it. And there are challenges on the ground. So maybe if you would like just to add a few words in the end. Over to you, Katka.
Yes, thank you, and apologies to come back again. You know, we didn't have this system immediately. It took us 15 years to set it up. So we have done it step by step. And we started with a couple of sites, and it was done by a research community, by a university. So maybe you can think of in the countries, if you have a university, if you have someone, maybe try to inspire for a small project for a PhD or master's thesis, and start collecting a case of your interest And from there, you can take it step by step. Or, as I have written, maybe there are monitoring networks that exist, and they would be happy to take other countries on board. So you don't have to invent everything yourself. You can join. And as I said, there are research infrastructures that do not only exist in Europe, but they exist in other continents. I know that this year there is a number of continental events, and there will be more, and I'm quite sure I'll be in touch with Anastasia and others, because I believe that this closer collaboration with research institutes will be beneficial for all everyone who is involved in environmental protection, because there are resources that we can use to exactly generate data or have a possibility to have our samples that are collected to be analyzed. And we do not have to invest billions of dollars into building the same laboratory in 25 African countries. But there could be a research infrastructure network that is built exactly for this, to be used, and that all the countries can use this same laboratory, which is accredited, which provides good, which provides trustworthy results of the samples. So I see a lot of very good potential there. I cannot, of course, say it's ready now, let's do it, and send you an application form. But I think that within a year or two, it will be very advanced, and it will be possible and available globally. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katka. And indeed, good advice on, leveraging the existing partnerships, the existing infrastructure that is available, maybe not on the national level, but on the regional level. And also to bring the scientists on board, because science is generating a vast amount of data, which probably is in silos sometimes. So it's really great to work together side by side with the science community. And we've had a few sessions with the science and the policymakers in June on the research needs and research opportunities. And actually, Resetox also presented at that time in June on what kind of data sets are being generated globally by the science and research community. Thank you so much, Katka. And maybe Dana, if you would like to have a few words before we wrap up. And
Hi, thank you so much, Anastasia. Again, on behalf of the Regional Center, thank you so much for the opportunity to present. I would just also echo sentiments as well of the previous presenter, and just indicate that, there is the opportunity, even if each country nationally may not have the capacity, that we should strive to collaborate as much as possible. And that would also support with reaching the end goal as well. In the Caribbean, that is something that we often try to do, share resources where one person or one country may not have the technical capacity, another may. So that is something that we'd also advocate for, collaboration across the region. So thank you all again. We appreciate the opportunity.
thank you very much, Dana, and many thanks to everyone, to Carla, to Mihaela, many thanks to Katka, to Dana again for sharing all this experience and bringing this knowledge to the public space and sharing it with our colleagues around the world working on in the same field. So with this, we are ready to wrap up, and we'll be sharing the video recordings, and we'll be sharing the slides, if our colleagues would not mind us doing that with all the participants of this session. And we'll be happy to see you again in November. Thank you very much, and have a nice day and evening or morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you. Goodbye.